Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Ityutte So Bhagava Araham Samma Sambuddho Vijjacharana Sampanno Sugato Lokavito Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarathi Sattha Deva Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati. Good evening, everybody. Welcome for the Saturday talk. I think you already know that we are talking on the 9 epithets which are used to sing the virtues of the Buddha. In the last Saturday, we talked about the virtue called Araham, and we explained the virtues behind this epithet Araham. Today, the second epithet, Samma Sambuddho. Now, this is something very familiar to us because each of the times we bow down to the Buddha, we recite Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Samma Sambuddha. This very familiar term gives us the depth of the Buddhism or the depth of the practice of the Gautama, the Buddha, or of all the Buddhas. Now, to explain this Samma Sambuddha, generally, there are several ideas behind this term, behind this epithet, that we have to take into our account. Buddha is called Samma Sambuddha chiefly because of the factor that he is a teacher. He has the ability to guide, to lead his followers to the same enlightenment that he achieved. Now, when we are going on explaining on this idea, that we can find not all the Buddhas are capable of doing that. And also he is called Samma Sambuddha because of his omniscience, all-knowing knowledge, which are supported by 10 kinds of powers, wisdom powers, that the Buddha knew everything which must be known by an enlightened master in his process of helping others to the enlightenment. His knowledge is not for showing off or not for entertainments. The knowledge or the wisdom of the Buddha for the purpose of helping others for their enlightenment, not for showing off. That is why when he was asked certain questions about the world, when it began or when it ends, Buddha said, what is the purpose? Whether you learn the beginning or the end of the world, that knowledge will not help you for your realization, for your nibbana. Your suffering will remain as they are without any difference by knowing all these kind of knowledges which will just entertain you, which will just boost your ego. So Buddha has no any consideration on the types of knowledge that will just fill you up, the types of knowledge that will be just for boosting your ego. So we have to understand, when we talk about the Buddha's wisdom, Buddha's knowledge is all about helping others, supporting others, assisting others to be awakened according to their individual capacities. That is why Buddha's wisdom is used for the enlightenment of others, not for any other worldly, secular, not for entertainments, but for the enlightenment. So because he is all-knowing, he is omniscient, because he was self-awakened, his awakening, his enlightenment was something he found himself, without being assisted by any other enlightened master. He was self-enlightened. These are the reasons behind the term Samma Sambuddha, behind this epithet. Now let's move on to explain this one by one for our clear understanding. Now, we don't have to go anywhere else. This is a compound word made out of 3 words, combining them, that we got this Samma Sambuddha. Samma Sambuddha. Now, if we explain these terms separately, one by one, we can go to the depth of the meaning of this epithet Samma Sambuddha. Buddha. Now, Buddha is a common noun. Buddha is not somebody's name. Anybody who is enlightened, anybody who came out of this cycle of suffering, cycle of birth and death, he can be called a Buddha. So Buddha can be anybody's name. Once he is enlightened, once he come out of this repeated cycle of birth and death, this samsara, once he come out of it, he is called the Buddha. Can belong to any nation, any country, anywhere he can be belong to, but once he is enlightened, he doesn't belong to anywhere, but he is belong to the lineage called the enlightened masters, the Buddhas. So Buddha is a person, whoever got enlightened, and all these Buddhas got enlightened by following the same method. by realizing the same realizing, their realization is just the same. Their destruction is also just the same. So whoever get enlightened, they realize the same nibbana, they destroy the same defilements, they practice the same path, the same technique. So all those enlightened masters, without any differences, can be called the Buddhas. Now here, this term Buddha is connected with some Buddha. Now who are these some Buddha? Now there are three types of Buddhas. Three types because of the differences after their enlightenment, based on their practice, based on their fulfillment of the virtues in the samsara. After their enlightenment, they have some differences based on their practice. The difference is somebody can teach, somebody can guide others to the enlightenment, and they could enlightenment by themselves without being supported by another enlightened master. Their enlightenment is a self-awakening. And they can teach, they can guide. And there are also self-awakened Buddhas, but they cannot guide others, they cannot help others. They are just enlightened by themselves, finding the same truths, following the same path, realizing the same goal. They got enlightened by themselves, but they are not so perfect. Not so perfect in the sense that they don't have the powers of wisdom to teach others, to help others to be enlightened. And there are enlightened disciples in the sense they got enlightened, being supported, being guided by another enlightened masters. So we can see, though they are all enlightened Buddhas, they are not in the same category. There are three categories. Buddhas, the perfect. We call them the epithet that we are describing today, Samma Sambuddha. Then the second category is Buddhas, the private. Private in the sense they are keeping silence because they don't have the capacity, though they have that compassion, the love to help others to get the same enlightenment as they got, but they don't have the capacity, so they keep quiet, they keep silence. They call Pacheka Buddhas, Buddhas the private. And the last category is Buddhas the students. They don't have to find the truth themselves. A perfect Buddha, Samma Sambuddha, have already found the truth. What they have to do is just follow the technique. Just work hard on the technique that the Buddha had already given. They are called the Buddhas, the students. Sravaka Buddha, Samma Sambuddha, Pacheka Sambuddha, Sravaka Buddha. Now the first two categories, Samma Sambuddha and Pacheka Sambuddha, they are realized the enlightenment themselves. They were awakened by themselves. They attained to Nibbana by themselves. Hence, some Buddha can be used and have been used in the Tipitaka only for the two types of Buddhas, Samma Sambuddha, Buddhas the perfect, and Pacheka Sambuddha, Buddhas the private. Sambuddha term defines the idea that they got enlightened by themselves. They were self-awakened. Then the most difficult Buddha comes in. Most rare, noble individual in the world. Samma Sambuddha. Buddha the perfect. This Sambuddha also, he is called Sambuddha because his realization is a self-realization. No teacher to help him. That is why in the Dhamma Sutta, the first sermon he gave to the world, introducing his teaching to the world, he says, this Dhamma, this technique, this teaching has never been found in this world before. This is the first time this teaching, this technique for the realization of the truth is happening in the world. Now, when we look at the Buddha's practice as the unenlightened Bodhisattva, as the Buddha to be, Bodhisattva, the meaning is Buddha to be. He was familiar with the existing practices for the happiness at that time in India. For 29 years as a prince, he was in the extreme level of gratifying his senses. What do you call Kama Sukhallikanu Yoga? For 29 years. There were nothing he had to say, I don't have this, I haven't experienced this. Everything at his hand's distance, at his arm's reach. Everything is available for him, whatever that the world can provide at that time as a prince. He lived the most luxurious life in the world. So he experienced the Kama Sukhallikanu Yoga, the extreme gratification of the five senses. He was engulfed in that gratification of the five senses. So he knows, no matter how much you try to satisfy your five senses, you will always feel empty. It doesn't bring you the eternal, everlasting happiness. You will always feel something missing, empty. You will never be satisfied. And after that, 29, he renounced, went to the forest, and started practicing the other extreme. The other extreme of self-mortification, torturing the physical body. First is to satisfy the physical body. Then the second extreme is to mortify, to torture the physical body. And he found that torturing the physical body also doesn't provide him the everlasting, non-relapsing your physical body to a medium level, to a certain level, to a comfortable level, while you are cultivating your spirituality, taking care of your body, the well-being of your physical body, and cultivate your mind, your spirituality at the same time. It happens in the middle path. Now, this middle path, as we all know, consists of 8 factors: samma ditti, samma sankappa, right view, right intention; samma vacha, right speech; samma kammanta, right action; samma ajiva, right livelihood; samma vayama, right effort; samma sati, right mindfulness; samma samadhi, right concentration. He understood himself. This is the point where I should maintain myself, physically as well as spiritually. Then this maintenance of the middleness of the physicality and mind, physicality and the spirituality, realization happens. So with the self-realization about the path and following that path, he discovered that ultimate freedom from suffering, liberation from the cycle of suffering. So he was self-realized. Now, when we look at this eightfold path, every factor of the path begins with samma, samma. And this samma has a very mysterious connection with the samma sambuddha. You can see that. Now, generally, in the Eight Noble Path, when we were studying, we all know samma is being translated as right, good, perfect. Samma, given those meanings, right, good, or perfect. And samma sambuddha also translated to the English as Buddha the perfect. Now, what is this connection? For this connection, we can find a very interesting sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, Kandaraka Sutta, sutta number 51. Here the Buddha had a conversation with the elephant rider's son called Pessa. He says, Pessa, there are 4 types of people, 4 types of individuals in the world. The first type is attantapa, who torment themselves, who torture themselves. Now we can see very clearly this is connected with the people who follow the Atta Kilamatana Yoga. Extreme indulgence in the self-tormentation, torturing your own physical body. Now, attantapa, people who enjoy or people who are into the practice of torturing themselves. Buddha says this is against nature. They torment themselves because they believe this idea. When you torment yourself, you are going to be liberated from the accumulated karmic energy within you. You are going to be liberated by torturing yourself, then getting rid of those accumulated karmic energy. Buddha says this is just a belief. Nobody likes to be tortured. Everybody desires to have comforts, luxury. Nobody desires torturing. This is just going against your desires. But they do that. They still do that. Torturing themselves in the hope of getting into the liberation. But this doesn't work. And now this is the first category. First type of individuals who torture themselves. Attantapa. The second category is parantapa. The people who torture others, who torment others. The first category is being violent to themselves. The second category is being violent to the others. But violence is violence. To what direction you practice it doesn't matter. Being violent to yourself or being violent to others doesn't make any difference. How do you become violent to others? When you try to gratify your five senses excessively. When you do not know how to gratify your senses moderately, naturally you torture, torment, trouble others. That is why when you observe the five precepts, Kamesu, Micca, Chara, Vera, Mani. Kamesu. Kama means whatever you like, that can be called kama. Now this world system, in the Buddhist world system, what are the kama lokas? Animal realms, four hells, human realm, and six divine realms, Deva realms. Kama Sugati, Kama Dugati. Two types of Kama realms. Kama Dugati are the four types of hells. Kama Sugati, human realms, and the six Deva realms, six divine realms. Why are they being called Kama? Because these are the realms where you can find objects to gratify, to satisfy our senses. Hence, this is Kama. Kamesu. In Pali, Kamesu is in the seventh category. When you conjugate them, Kamesu means on the objects of sensual pleasures, on the objects that you use to satisfy your senses. That is the meaning Kamesu. Michachara, wrong behavior. Now, of course, today people explain this only based on the sexual misconduct. There's nothing wrong, but it is not enough. It is not just about the sexual misconduct. It is about the sensual misconduct. You try to gratify your senses beyond the moderate level. Naturally, you cause suffering either to yourself or to the others. That is why Buddha gave this precept specifically in the five precepts to be practiced on the daily basis for everybody, for the lay people as well as the monastic, for everybody. Not to have sensual gratifications beyond the limit, because it will cause suffering to somebody else. So we can find the second category, parantapa. The people who torment others are the selfish people who only think about the gratification of their five senses, and their actions, their words, their behaviors cause trouble for others. In the process of gratifying the five senses, they torture others. This is the second category of people. The third category is attantapancha parantapa, who torment themselves and torment others. When you are violent to somebody else, what happens? Immediate effect is somebody is getting tortured, somebody is getting disturbed, troubled, worried because of your being violent. This is the immediate result. What is the long-term result? Long-term result is you are going to be tormented by the results of your own actions one day, sooner or later. When you are violent to others, unknowingly you are generating a negative, dark energy within you. That negative, dark energy created within you being violent can become your greatest hindrance in your meditation. When people start practicing in the meditation, their meditation can become torturous for them if they have so much of memories that create regret in them. They are regretting is so much, they themselves scared when those memories come onto the surface. They cannot practice. So if you have little regrets, little memories of your torturing of others, it is a blessing for your meditation. So in long run, your spirituality will be far away with the accumulation of those apunya visankhara. Buddha says, accumulation of demerits. These demerits are nothing but the activity that you performed to fulfill your senses, to satisfy your senses, and to create suffering for others. The result of these activities generated within you as a dark energy. This dark energy will not give you any kind of light, only the darkness, only the unhappiness, suffering. So attantapancha parantapa, you torment yourself and torment others. This is the third category. All these three types of individuals who torment others, who torment himself, and who torment himself and others, these three categories belong to the two extremes of self-gratification and self-mortification. Atta kilamatana yoga, kama sukhallikana yoga. The last category belong to the middle part. Nevatantapam na parantapam. He neither torment himself nor torment others. His very living does not trouble others. The way he lives itself, his very existence, is troubleless for others. Now, Buddha wanted to make sure that his followers don't trouble others much. Now, in the Dhammapada, Buddha compares the arms round of the monk. You know, arms round is we call pindapata, right? The pindapata of a monk is compared to the roaming of a bee around the flowers in his process of collecting honey. Now, the bee never hurts a flower. He never disturbs the flower. And moreover, because of his collecting honey, the fragrance of the flowers become more. Yeah. The fragrance emanating much more because of the collecting of the honey of the bee. Now, Buddha compared the pindapata of a monk to this bee. He just moved from one house to another without demanding, without being selective, without asking anything. He just moved from one house to another, giving the opportunity for the people to generate merits, to enhance their meritorious power. So just like the bee, the monk collect his food to survive. And also in the Karaniyametta Sutta, we can find this term, Sallahukavutti, simple livelihood. The monk shouldn't be a burden to the society just because he lives in the temple, in the village. He doesn't have the right to disturb or become a burden for the people in the village. Whatever four requisites, whatever quality of the four requisites he received from the villagers, he must be santussako. He must be happy. He must be contented. He must be happy about them and grateful towards them. So Buddha always made sure the livelihood must be samma ajiva. The livelihood of the monks must be the right livelihood, samma ajiva. That livelihood of the monk shouldn't be a trouble for others or trouble for himself. If his very living is a trouble, how can he cultivate his spirituality? If his very living is a trouble for others, same thing, he cannot cultivate himself. Now you can see the very clearly this samma in the Majjhima Patipada, in the middle part, has a very strong connection with the samma in the epithet Samma Sambuddha. Yeah. So whoever follow this path, Samma path, is a person who neither torment himself nor he torment others. He neither creates suffering for him nor for others. Now, if somebody follows this path, he becomes innocent, non-violent. He can practice all those virtues easily. Because when you are tormenting within yourself, when you are suffering within yourself, you cannot become compassionate, loving for others. You cannot become equivalent for others. You have to be happy, contented, blissful within yourself. In that blissfulness, naturally you are compassionate and loving for others. So following this Samma path, following this middle path, he became a Samma Sambuddha. Now, I didn't see this connection is being explained in any book. This is what I thought. So, Samma, anyway, Samma indicates his perfection. Perfection as a teacher. This perfection because of his all-knowing ability. All-knowing in the sense, it doesn't mean that he sees and knows everything and anything all the time. Yeah. Now, when we say omniscient, there are other terms like omnipotent, something like that. Omnipotent. There are masters, religious masters are being used to describe as omnipotent, omnipresent. Yeah. It means that they are present all the time, to anywhere and everywhere. But it doesn't have such a meaning in the term when we used omniscient for the Buddha. In the Majjhima Nikaya, there is a sutta called Abhay Rajakumara. This Prince Abhay Rajakumara is a prince. So Abhay is his name. Prince Abhay, one day when he offered the dana to the Buddha, he sat down aside and asked the Buddha, Venerable Sir, Bhagavan, I know many people come and ask questions from you. Those householders, those Brahmins, those religious people. When they come to you and ask questions, do you have a visualization? Okay, this person is going to ask me this question. When he asks me this question, I'm going to answer this way. Or does your answer arise in you spontaneously? Then the Buddha, without answering him directly, he asked this Prince Abhay, tell me, Prince, how about your knowledge? How about your understanding about the carts? Those days, their vehicle was carts. So Buddha asked him about his knowledge on the carts. Do you know all the parts of the carts? Prince said, yes, Venerable Sir, I know the parts and mend it myself. I know them very well. Then when somebody comes to you and asks you about the parts of the carts, do you have a previous thinking, something like, okay, if he asks about this part, I will answer this way, or something like that? Or does your answer arise spontaneously? Prince Abhay said, Venerable Sir, it is in my system. I know everything about the cart. I no need to have thinking like that. When somebody asks me about the parts of the cart, the answer just arises in me. Then the Buddha said, it is same for me. All the matters, their elements are known to me. The elements of the matters are known to me. Only the periphery is different, but the element is just the same. They are very well known to me. Hence, if somebody asks me anything, I no need to have any kind of premeditated thinking for that. The answer just arises to me because the element is familiar to me. I know everything. So the Buddha, to understand something or to comprehend something, he just have to concentrate on it. Once he concentrate something, whether it is in the past, future, or in the present, or whether it is belong to the timeless, a concept, doesn't matter. It is clear to him as if something on his palm. Whatever belong to the past, future, present, and the timeless, these time barrier cannot obstruct the penetrative wisdom of the Buddha. That is why this wisdom of the Buddha we call omniscient wisdom, sarvajñata jnana, sabbhanyuta jnana. Another name for this sarvajñata jnana or the omniscient wisdom is anavarana jnana. Anavarana jnana, meaning is unveiling wisdom. No veil can hinder the Buddha's approach to the truth. Whether it is belong to any time, anywhere, or timeless, doesn't matter. Buddha's wisdom, once he concentrated everything with all the aspects clear to the Buddha. It is called omniscient wisdom, sarvajñata jnana, sabbhanyuta jnana. The same sabbhanyuta jnana is explained as anavarana jnana, unveiling wisdom. With that unveiling wisdom, no secret can exist in the eyes of the Buddha. Everything is clear to him. That's why nobody dared to lie. Tell a lie in front of a Buddha, because Buddha knows. Nobody dared to do that. So with that wisdom, Buddha could help. Buddha could assist as much possible as he can to help them to achieve the same enlightenment as he got. For 45 years, he was using his wisdom to help others. As I said very earlier in the talk, Buddha did not use his wisdom to entertain people. When people come and ask questions like whether this universe has a beginning or end, whether the Buddha has a life after this, whether this world, when did this world begin and when it will end, these kinds of questions Buddha never answered, never ever even think about answering. He completely rejected. Buddha's idea is, if you are struck by an arrow, the first thing you have to do is remove the arrow. If you are checking about the one who shot the arrow and what kind of wood being used to make the shaft of the arrow, what kind of poison he has been using to smear on the head of the arrow, if you were investigating all these unnecessary materials, unnecessary knowledges, you will die without finding the answer. So the first thing is remove the arrow. So the Buddha's concern is, first thing is to be enlightened. Get rid of this cycle of birth and death. For that he used his wisdom. He used his all-knowing wisdom to assist anybody who is willing to follow his own path, walk on the Buddha's path, and get the enlightenment. Yeah. That is why Buddha repeatedly explained his teaching for the realizing of the Four Noble Truths. All his teaching, whatever direction it goes, it will end up in the realization of the Four Noble Truths. It begins, spiritual practice begins with the right view, sammaditthi, of the Four Noble Truths. And it will end with the realizing of the Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, destroying the cause of suffering, and the way to destroy the cause of suffering. Only the first truth is about suffering. Second, third, fourth is about removing the cause of suffering. Yeah. To remove this cause of suffering, he introduced this noble path, the middle path. In following this middle path, the Gautama, the Buddha, got liberated from suffering. And for 45 years, with that liberation, because of the parami he fulfilled in his past lives, the parami he fulfilled is infinite. If we have a quick look on this parami he fulfilled, Dana, Sila, Nekkam, Panya, Virya, Kanti, Satya, Aditthana, Metta, Upekka. Dana, generosity. Sila, morality. Nekkamma, renunciation. Panya, wisdom. Kanti, patience. Satya, truthfulness. Aditthana, determination. Metta, loving kindness. And Upekka, equanimity. He fulfilled this parami to the ultimate sense. That is why Parama Atta, to the ultimate sense he fulfilled. Dana Parami, Upaparami, Paramatta Parami. This fulfilling of the parami to the ultimate sense gave him the capability, gave him those wisdom powers to be called that he is all-knowing. He knows everything. Nothing is obstructed for his vision. To be called that, he had the parami, the energy, the positive, bright energy behind him that he fulfilled to the ultimate level. Parami, Upaparami, Paramatta Parami. Those who fulfill the first 10 parami, they can become student Buddhas. Those who fulfill the first 10 parami and the second 10 Upaparami, once they are fulfilled, they can become self-enlightened, but they cannot teach. So they can become Pacheka Buddhas, Buddhas the private. And when they fulfilled these Samatrinshat Parami, these triple type of 10 Parami 30 times, these 10 Parami become 30 when it is fulfilled 3 times as Parami, Upaparami, Paramatta Parami. They are the only ones to be called Samma Sambuddha, Buddhas the perfect. The perfectly enlightened, perfectly self-enlightened Buddhas. They are the rarest, noble individuals that this world can ever see. Today, the last Samma Sambuddha is no more to be found. Physically, he is absent, but his Dhamma is still very much alive. Anybody who follows this Dhamma, even today, there is no reason that person cannot become enlightened if he has the background of parami which he did in his past lives. So, if somebody get enlightened following the path of the Buddha, he is not a Buddha. He is a student Buddha. He cannot just say Buddha. He is called Arahant. Yeah. Because there are people who says they got enlightened and they are Buddhas. No. They cannot say that. It is completely wrong because they followed the teachings of a fully enlightened Samma Sambuddha. By following the teaching, you get enlightened. If they got enlightened, they can call, I am a student, I am an Arahant. It is an insult even to use the Buddha for them, because they followed the Samma Sambuddha and became enlightened, not by themselves. If somebody become enlightened by themselves, they are to be called Sambuddha. Only the first two categories, the Buddhas, the perfect Samma Sambuddha, and the Buddhas, the private Pacceka Buddhas, can be called Sambuddha. If somebody to become enlightened by following the teachings of a Samma Sambuddha, we have a common name for them. We don't even call them Buddha, though it is there as the Sravaka Buddha, but we don't call them Sravaka Buddha, we just call them Arahant. He is an Arahant. Today it is rare to be found, because the people who had Parami, they met the Gautama, the Buddha, they got enlightened. So with that, we will conclude this talk. Please be with us to join with our chant. The Buddha to be called the Buddha, the perfect, Samma Sambuddha, that he was self-awakened. With that self-awakening, he found this middle path, and following this middle path, he achieved the enlightenment. And for 45 years, he was teaching the people how to get enlightened. And moreover, these middle factors of middle path directing to create the noblest individual in the world. That noblest individual is the one who neither torment himself nor the others. The first three belong to the extremes, either torment himself or torment others. These three individuals are considered as ignoble. Michcha Ajiva, wrong livelihood. Samma Ajiva creates the last group, who neither generates suffering for himself nor for others. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sabbetyo vivajjantu sabbarogo vinassatu mate bhavatvantarayo sukhe degayuko bhava. Sadhu. සංඝෝ උජුපටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ ඥායපටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ සාවක සංඝෝ යතිදම් චත්තාරි පුරිස යුගානි අට්ඨ පුරිස පුග්ගලා ඒස භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ ආහුනේයෝ පාහුනේයෝ දක්ඛිනේයෝ අංජලි කරණීයෝ අනුත්තරං පුඤ්ඤක්ඛෙත්තං ලෝකස්සාති අනතරප්පදිත්තේන දීපේන කමලං සිනාති ලෝකදීපං සම්බුද්ධං පූජයාමි තමෝනුදං ගන්ධ සම්භාරයුත්තේන ධූපේනාහං සුගන්ධිනා පූජයේ පූජනීයන්තං පූජා වාජනමුත්තමං වන්නගන්ධ ගුණෝපේතං ඒතං කුසුම සන්තතින් පූජයාමි මුනින්දස්ස සිරිපාද සරෝරුහේ පූජේමි බුද්ධං කුතුමේන නේන පුඤ්ඤේන මේතේන ච හෝතු මොක්ඛං කුප්පං විනායාති යතයි ධම්මේ කායෝ තථායාති විනාශ භාවං අනන්ත ඥානෝ විමලෝ දක්ඛිනේයෝ ගුණාකරෝ පටිගන්හාතු භගවා දක්ඛිනෝදක උත්තමං අදිවාසේතු නෝ බන්තේ නිලාන පච්චයං ඉමං අනුකම්පං උපාදාය පටිගන්හාතු මුත්තම අදිවාසේතු නෝ බන්තේ සම්බං සද්ධාය පූජිතං අනුකම්පං උපාදාය පටිගන්හාතු මුත්තම වන්දාමි චේතියං සබ්බං සබ්බකානේ සුපතිච්චිතං සාරීරික ධාතු මහා බෝධින් බුද්ධ රූපං සකලං සදායස්ස මූලේ නිසින්නෝව සබ්බාරි විජයං අකාබන්තෝ සම්බං යුතං සත්තා වන්දේ තං බෝධිපාදපං ඉමේ මහා බෝධි ලෝකනාතේන පූජිතා අහං පිතේ නමස්සාමි බෝධි රාජා නමස්තුතේ කායේන වාචා චිත්තේන පමාදේන මයා කතං අච්චයං කමමේ බන්තේ භූරි පඤ්ඤ තථාගත කායේන වාචා චිත්තේන පමාදේන මයා කතං අච්චයං කමමේ ධම්ම සම්දිත්තික අකාලික කායේන වාචා චිත්තේන පමාදේන මයා කතං අච්චයං කමමේ සංඝ සුපටිපන්න අනුත්තර නමෝ තස් භගවතු අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස් භගවතු අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස් භගවතු අරහතෝ සම්මා
Majjhima Patipada Tathāgatena api sambuddha Cakku karani jnana karani upasamaya abhiññāya sambodhāya nibbānāya sanvattati Katamāca sābhikkhave majjhimā patipadā tathāgatena Satchikātampampi me bhikkhave pubbhe ananussutesu dhammesu Chakkhum udapādi ñānaṁ udapādi paññā udapādi viccā udapādi āloko udapādi Saṅkho panidam dukkha nirodhaṁ ariya saccam Satchikatanti me bhikkhave pubbhe ananussutesu dhammesu Chakkhum udapādi ñānaṁ udapādi paññā udapādi viccā udapādi āloko udapādi Idam dukkha nirodhagāmini patipada ariya sacchanti me bhikkhave pubbhe ananussutesu dhammesu Chakkhum udapādi ñānaṁ udapādi paññā udapādi viccā udapādi āloko udapādi Saṅkho panidam dukkha nirodhagāmini patipada Nussutesu dhammesu Chakkhum udapādi ñānaṁ udapādi paññā udapādi viccā udapādi āloko udapādi Saṅkho panidam dukkha nirodhagāmini patipada ariya saccam Bhavitanti me bhikkhave pubbhe ananussutesu dhammesu Chakkhum udapādi ñānaṁ udapādi paññā udapādi viccā udapādi āloko udapādi Yāvakīvañca me bhikkhave imesu chatusu ariya saccēsu evanti parivattam dvādasākāraṁ yatā bhūtaṁ ñāna dassanaṁ na suvisuddhaṁ ahoti neva Make satsavana brahmaniya vajaya sadeva manusaya anuttaram samma sambodhim abhisambuddho vajjanyasim Yatko me bhikkhave imesu chatusu ariya saccēsu evanti parivattam dvādasākāraṁ yatā bhūtaṁ ñāna dassanaṁ nasu visuddhaṁ ahoti Ataham bhikkhave sadevake loke samarake sabrahmake sassamanam brahmaniya vajaya sadeva manusaya Bhagavata Varanasiyam Isipatane Migadaye Anuttaram Dhamma Cakkam Pavattitang Abbativattiyam Samanena Vagrammanena Vadevena Vamarena Vabramuna Vagena Chivalogasminti Yavadinsanam Devanam Saddam Sutvayama Deva Saddamanussare Sumvedam Bhagavata Varanasiyam Isipatane Migadaye Anuttaram Dhamma Cakkam Pavattitang Abbativattiyam Samanena Va Brahmanena Va Devena Va Marena Va Brahmuna Va Kena Chiva Lokasminte Yamanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Usita Deva Saddamanusaresum Usitanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Nimmanarati Deva Saddamanusaresum Nimmanaratinam Devanam Saddam Paranimita Vasavatino Deva Saddamanusaresum Paranimita Vasavattinam Devanam Saddam Sutva Brahma Parisajja Deva Saddamanusaresum Brahma Parisajjanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Brahma Purohita Deva Saddamanusaresum Brahma Purohitanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Mahabrahma Deva Saddamanusaresum Brahmanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Parittava Deva Saddamanusaresum Parittavanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Appamanava Deva Saddamanusaresum Appamanavanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Abhassara Deva Saddamanusaresum Abhassaranam Devanam Saddam Sutva Paritta Subha Deva Saddamanusaresum Paritta Subhanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Appamana Subha Deva Saddamanusaresum Appamana Subhanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Subhakinnaka Deva Saddamanusaresum Subhakinnakanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Vehappala Deva Saddamanusaresum Vehappalanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Vihara Deva Saddamanusaresum Avihanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Atappa Deva Saddamanusaresum Atappanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Sudassa Deva Saddamanusaresum Sudassanam Devanam Saddam Sutva Sudassi Deva Saddamanusaresum Sudassinam Devanam Saddam Sutva Panittaka Deva Saddamanusaresum Eta සත්‍යං සමනේන වා බ්‍රාහ්මනේන වා දේවේන වා මාරේන වා බ්‍රහ්මනා වා කේන චිවා ලෝකස්මින්දී අනේන තේන මුත්තේන යාව බ්‍රහ්ම ලෝකා සත්තු අබ්බුගංචි අයංච දස සහස්සී ලෝක ධාතු සංකම්පි සම්පකම්පි සම්භවේදී අප්පමානෝ ච උදාරෝ භාසෝ ලෝකේ පාතුරං රතික්කම්ම දේවානං දේවානුභාවන්තේ අතෝ භගවා උදානං උදානේසී අඤ්ඤාති වතවෝ පුණ්ඩඤ්ඤෝ අඤ්ඤාසි වතවෝ පුණ්ඩඤ්ඤෝති ආයස්මතෝ පුණ්ඩඤ්ඤස්ස අඤ්ඤා පුණ්ඩඤ්ඤෝත්තේව නාමං අහෝසීති තේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන සබ්බ දුක්ඛං විනස්සතු තේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන සබ්බ භයං විනස්සතු තේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන සබ්බ රෝගෝ විනස්සතු ඒතන්ත චිත්තා තිසරණ සරණායත්ත ලෝකන්තරේවා බුම්මා බුම්මා ච දේවා ගුණගණ ගානං ව්‍යාවටා සබ්බකාලං ඒතේ ආයන්තු දේවා වරකන සමයේ මේරු රාජේ වසන්තෝ සන්තෝ සන්තෝ මහේව මුනිවර වචනං සෝතු මග්ගං සමග්ගං සබ්බේසු චක්කවාලේසු යක්ඛා දේවා ච බ්‍රහ්මනෝ යං අම්මේහි කතං පුඤ්ඤං සම්ප සම්පන්ති සාධකං සබ්බේතං අනුමෝදිත්වා සමග්ගා සාසනේ රතා පමාද රහිතා හොන්තු ආරක්ඛාසු විශේෂතෝ සාසනස්ස ච ලෝකස්ස බුද්ධේ භවතු සම්පදා සාසනං විච ලෝකං ච දේවා රක්ඛන්තු සම්පදා සම්තිං හොන්තු සුඛේ සබ්බේ පරිවාරේහි අත්තනෝ අනීගා සුමනා හොන්තු සාසබ්බේහි ඥාතිභී රාජතෝ වා චෝරතෝ වා මනුස්සතෝ වා මනුස්සතෝ වා අග්ගිතෝ වා උදකතෝ වා පිසාචතෝ වා කානුකතෝ වා කණ්ඨකතෝ වා නක්ඛත්තතෝ වා ජනපද රෝගතෝ වා සද්ධම්මතෝ වා සම්දිට්ඨිතෝ වා අසප්පුරිසතෝ වා චණ්ඩහත්ති අස්සමිගවෝන කුක්කුරහි විච්චික මනිසප්පදීපී අච්චතරච්ච සූකර මහිස යක්ක රක්ඛසාදීහි නානාභයතෝ වා නානාරෝගතෝ වා නානා උපද්දවතෝ වා ආරක්ඛං ගන්නන්තු අනිදානතෝ පණ්ඩාය තථාගතස්ස දස පාරමියෝ දස උපපාරමියෝ දස පරමත්ත පාරමියෝ පංච මහා පරිච්ඡාගේ දිස්සෝ චරියා පච්චිම භවේ ගබ්බාවක්ඛන්තිං ජාතින් අබිනික්ඛමනං වදාන චරියං බෝධිපල්ලංකේ මාර විජයං සබ්බඤ්ඤුත ඥාන පටිවේදං නවලෝකුත්තරං මේති සබ්බේ බිමේ බුද්ධ ගුණේ ආවජ්ජිත්වා වේසාමියාති සුභාගානන්තරේසු යාමරන්තේ පරිත්තං කමන්තු ආයස්මානන්දත්තේරෝ චිත්තං උපට්ඨපෙත්වා කෝටි සතසාස්සේසු චක්කවාලේසු දේවතා යස්සානං පතිගන්නන්ති යංච වේසාලියං පුරේ රෝගා මනුස්ස දුම්බික්ඛ සම්භූතං ත්‍රිවිධං භයං පිබ්බමන්තර ධාපේ පරිත්තං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු කයං විරාගං අමතං පනිතං යදච්චගා සක්්‍ය මුනි සමාහිතෝ නතේන ධම්මේන සමත්ති කිංචේ ඉදම්පි ධම්මේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යම් බුද්ධසෙට්ඨෝ පරිවන්නයි සුචින් සමාධිමානන්තරිකඤ්ඤමාහු සමාධිනාදේන සමෝන විච්ඡති ධම්පි ධම්මේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යේ පුග්ගලා අට්ඨ සතං පසත්තා චත්තාරි ඒතානි යුගානි හොන්ති තේ දක්ඛිනේය්‍යා සුගතස්ස ශාවකා ඒතේසු දින්නානි මහබ්බලානි ධම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යේ සොප්පයුත්තා මනසා දල්ලේන නික්ඛාමිනෝ ගෝතම සාසනං මේ දේපත්ති පද්දාමතං විජය ලද්දා මුදා නිබ්බුතින් බුඤ්ජමානා ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යතින්දදීලෝ පඨවින් සිතෝසියා චතුබ්බිවාදේ විය සම්පකම්පියෝ තතෝපමං සප්පුරිසං වදාමි යෝ අරිය සච්චානි අවෙච්ච පස්සති යම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යේ අරිය සච්චානි විභාවයන්ති ගම්භීර පඤ්ඤේන සුදේසිතානි කිංචාපිතේ හොන්ති කුසප්පමත්තා නතේ භවං අට්ඨමං ආදියන්ති ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු සාවස්ස දස්සන සම්පදාය අයන්තු ධම්මා චරිතා භවන්තේ සක්කාය දිට්ඨි විචිකිච්ඡිතං ච සීලබ්බතං වාපියතත්ති කිංචි චතු විප්පමුත්තෝ යථාවිතානානි අබබ්බෝ කාතුං ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු කිංචාපිසෝ කම්මං කරෝති පාපකං කායේන වාචා උදචේතසා වා බබ්බෝසෝ තස්ස පටිච්චාදාය අබබ්බතා දිට්ඨ පදස්ස උත්තා ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු වනප්පගුම්බේ යතා පුස්සිතග්ගේ ගිම්මාන මාසේ පඨමස්මින් ගිම්මේ තතූපමන් ධම්ම වරං අදේසයි නිබ්බානගාමින් පරමං හිතාය ඉදම්පි බුත්තේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු වරෝ වරඤ්ඤෝ වරදෝ වනාහරෝ අනුත්තරෝ ධම්ම වරං අදේසයි ඉදම්පි බුත්තේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු කේනං පුරාණං නවන්නත්ති සම්භවං විරත්ත චිත්තායතිකේ භවස්මින් තේ කීන බීජා විනුල්හිච්ඡන්දානින් පන්ති දීරා යතායම් පදීකෝ ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනිතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යානිච භූතානි සමාගතානි බුම්මානි වායානි වහන්තලික්කේ තථාගතං දේව මනුස්ස පූජිතං බුද්ධං නමස්සාම සුවත්ති හෝතු යානිච භූතානි සමාගතානි බුම්මානි වායානි වහන්තලික්කේ තථාගතං දේව මනුස්ස පූජිතං ධම්මං නමස්සාම සුවත්ති හෝතු යානිච භූතානි සමාගතානි බුම්මානි වායානි වහන්තලික්කේ තථාගතං දුක්ඛා උපසමෙන්තු තේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන භයා උපසමෙන්තු තේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන රෝගා උපසමෙන්තු තේ කරණීය මත්ත කුසලේන යන්තං සන්තං පදං අபிසමෙච්ච සක්කෝ ජෝච සෝචෝ චස්ස මුදු අනතිමානී සන්තුස්සකෝ ච සුබරෝ ච අප්පගිච්ඡෝ ච සල්ලෝකෝත්තේ සම්දිල්ව්‍යෝ ච නිපකෝ ච අප්පගබ්බෝ කුලේසු අනනුගිද්දෝ නච කුද්දං සමාචරේ කිංචේන විඤ්ඤෝ පරේ උපවදෙය්‍යං සුඛිනෝ වාකේමිනෝ හොන්තු සබ්බේ සත්තා භවන්තු සුඛිතත්තා ඒකේ චිපාන භූතත්තේ දසාවාතාවරා වානවසේසා දීගාවායේ මහන්තා වා මච්චිමා රස්සකානුකතුලා දිට්ඨා වායේ වාත්‍රිට්ඨා ඒච දූරේ වසන්ති අවිදූරේ භූතා වා සම්භවේසි වා සබ්බේ සත්තා භවන්තු සුඛිතත්තා නපරෝ පරන්නිකුබ්බේත නාති මඤ්ඤේත කත්තචිනං කංචේ ව්‍යාරෝසනා පටිග සංඥානාඤ්ඤමඤ්ඤස්ස දුක්ඛමිච්ඡේය මාතා යතානියං පුත්තං ආයුසා ඒක පුත්තමනුරක්ඛේ එවං විසබ්බ භූතේසෝ මාන සම්භාවයේ අපරිමාණං මෙත්තං ච සබ්බ ලෝකස්මින් මාන සම්භාවයේ අපරිමාණං උත්තං අදෝච තිරියං ච අසම්බාධං අවේරං අසපත්තං දිට්ඨං චරං නිසින්නෝ වාසයානෝ වායාවතස්ස විගත මිද්දෝ ඒතං සතින් අදිත්තේය බ්‍රහ්මමේතං විහාරං ඉදමාහෝ දිට්ඨිං ච අනුපගම්ම සීලවා දස්සනේන සම්පන්නෝ කාමේසු විනෙය්‍යගේ දන්නනි චාතු ගබ්බසෙය්‍යං පුනරේති තේන සච්ච වච්චේන සොත්තිතේ හෝතු සබ්බදා ඒතේන සච්ච වච්චේන සොත්තිතේ හෝතු සබ්බදා ඒතේන සච්ච වච්චේන සොත්තිතේ හෝතු සබ්බදා සම්පීතියෝ විවජ්ජන්තු සබ්බ රෝගෝ විනස්සතු මාතේ භවත්වන්තරායෝ සුඛී දීඝායුකෝ භව භවතු සබ්බ මංගලං රක්ඛන්තු සබ්බ දේවතා සබ්බ බුද්ධානුභාවේන සදා සොත්ති භවන්තු තේ භවතු සබ්බ මංගලං රක්ඛන්තු සබ්බ දේවතා සබ්බ ධම්මානුභාවේන සදා සොත්ති භවන්තු තේ භවතු සබ්බ මංගලං රක්ඛන්තු සබ්බ දේවතා සබ්බ සංඝානුභාවේන සදා සොත්ති භවන්තු තේ තාවතාචයම්මේහි සම්පතං පුඤ්ඤ සම්පදං සබ්බේ දේවාන් නමෝදන්තු සබ්බ සම්පත්ති නමෝදන්තු සබ්බ සම්පත්ති සිද්ධියා එත්තාවතාචයම්මේහි සම්පතං පුඤ්ඤ සම්පදං සබ්බේ සත්තා නමෝදන්තු සබ්බ සම්පත්ති සිද්ධියා බුම්මත්තා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිत्वा චිරං රක්ඛන්තු ලෝක සාසනං ආකාශත්තා ච බුම්මත්තා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිत्वा චිරං රක්ඛන්තු ලෝක සාසනං ආකාශත්තා ච බුම්මත්තා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිत्वा චිරං රක්ඛන්තු ලෝක සාසනං ධම්මේ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ධම්මේ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ධම්මේ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඒවෝ අස්සතු කාලේන සස්ස සම්පත්තියෝතු තේතෝ භවතු ලෝකෝච රාජා භවතු ධම්මිකෝ ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බානපත්තියාය ධම්මේ පුඤ්ඤං ආසවක්ඛයාවහං හෝතු සබ්බ දුක්ඛා පමුච්ඡතු අභිවාදන සීලස නිච්ඡං වද්දා පචාය आयुरारोग्य संपत्ति सर्ग संपत्ति में वच अतो